Hi, my name is Ilma and welcome to my channel. I've been posting Christian blogs 13 straight years every day. Today I'd like to share Daniel 1 verses 1 to 7. Here's the word of God. In the third year of the reign of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came to Jerusalem and besieged it. And the Lord gave Jehoiakim, king of Judah, into his hand, with some of the vessels of the house of God. And he brought them to the land of Shinar, to the house of his God, and placed the vessels in the treasury of his God. Then the king commanded Ashpenaz, his chief eunuch, to bring some of the people of Israel, both of the royal family and of the nobility, youths without blemish, of good appearance, and skillful in all wisdom, endowed with knowledge, and understanding learning, and competent to stand in the king's palace, and to teach them the literature and language of the Chaldeans. The king assigned them a daily portion of the food that the king ate, and of the wine that he drank. They were to be educated for 3 years, and at the end of that time they were to stand before the king. Among these were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah of the tribe of Judah. And the chief of the eunuchs gave them names. Daniel he called Belteshazzar, Hananiah he called Shadrach, and Mishael and he called Meshach, and Azariah he called Abednego. Daniel 1 to 7. Here's my poem. Israel's sins led to captivity. When we become slaves to another nation, adversities come our way and much tribulations. Our identities and freedom can be totally compromised. But take heart and hold on tight to God's promises. Here's my commentary. This book was written by Daniel in the 6th century BC. In this account, we hear how King Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon's king, took over Jerusalem. If we read this passage historically, we will not be able to discern that it was also God who was behind all this. Why would God allow his own people to be in captivity? Jeremiah 2 explains why God brought them into the hands of the Babylonian king. They turned their backs on God and resorted to having other gods before him. They persisted in their idolatry, they were spiritually unfaithful, and oppressed the poor and corrupted their legal system. And they also didn't honor the Sabbath. Reflection. What are the consequences of sin to man? And in this case, do you view this as a punishment for the Israelites? I think we would always want to view God as a punishing God if we are to look at it as a punishment. But I think because God is a loving God and he created us in his image, in other words, we were made for God. We were not made for ourselves. We were not made for any other little gods. So when we sin, because God is not the author of sin, Satan is. So God did not create sin, but he allows sin so that his people will come back to him. So when we sin, there is a consequence. It's just like a law, the law of gravity. Like when you bounce a ball up in the air, it will go down. So in other words, when we sin, the consequence of sin will be something that is not good for us because we were not created for sin. We were created for love. So when we do something unloving, in this case, the Israelites were unloving to God and ungrateful for all the things that God had done to them. So instead of being loyal and faithful to God, they had their own gods. They follow their own whims. They follow their own corruption and evil. So that sin is is resulting in something that will destroy them. So that's the problem with sin, is that it is destructive to us. And that's why God didn't create sin. It was the evil one that allowed Adam and Eve to dwell in sin. He tempted Adam and Eve to sin. And when sin happened, there's the consequence. Consequence is they're kicked out of the paradise, and they had to struggle to work so that they can eat. So there's a consequence. So when you're a parent and you punish your kid, if there is no consequence to what he disobeyed, it's not going to be loving, because you are just leaving them to be unruly all their lives. So I encourage you to view to dwell on the consequences of sin, because God gave us all the commandments so that we are not going to bear the consequence of sin, so that we are going to follow him, we're going to live in his image, and we're going to live under his rule, under his sovereignty. So here it's interesting to see, like, why would the God who is loving allow them to go through that? Because he's teaching them a lesson. He's teaching them to see that they cannot sustain their lives if they go and praise other gods instead of him. Thanks for watching. I hope you check my website at ILMA'S.com for artworks, photographs, and a copy of this blog. Please subscribe to my channel on YouTube so I could make more videos, give you the Word of God. And if you haven't already, check over 4,000 videos I've done over the years I've been doing this daily. Just type on YouTube or Google search ILMA'S Poem Devotional. Have a wonderful day.